When the story of Thomas Beatty was first announced on the Oprah Winfrey Show, Beatty and his pregnancy were thrown on the front pages of newspapers and made into a spectacle on nearly every news station in the country. Jack Halberstam, author of Gaga Feminism, Sex, Gender, and the End of Normal, makes various arguments in the second chapter of his book. To him, pregnancy is a normal part of the circle of life, but Thomas's pregnancy as a transgender man confounded and confused the media as well as audiences watching and reading all around the world. As a transgender man, many outside of the queer community did not understand how he could become pregnant. Halberstam looked to use this as not a sensationalist piece about the first transgender pregnant man, which Beatty was not, but as a way to educate and teach about members of the community that are often overlooked in sex reassignment surgery. Straight and cisgender audiences were not the only ones outraged by Beatty's story, however. Many members of the queer community were frustrated by Beatty's claim to be the first pregnant transgender man, though so many came before him. They also questioned his motives for selling his story to media outlets. Out of Beatty's story, an old feminist idea came back to the forefront, that in order to free both men and women from socially prescribed gender roles and family roles, society must eliminate gender distinctions based on biological functions. This idea stemmed largely from feminist scholar Shula Smith Firestone and her predictions made in the 1970s about reproductive technologies. Today's reproductive technologies, like sperm banks and surrogacy, allow for changes in how we as individuals and how we as a society see the family structure.
The Full Monty is an example of fatherhood disappearing. It shows the concerns and shifts in the workplace as women started working more and more. This caused people to worry about the purpose of men if women could do what men could. The Full Monty is Roger Dodger is another example where women are wearing suits and ties and artificial insemination means men are not needed to reproduce. Roger, the main character, discusses evolution, genetics, and gives a long-winded speech about it being the end of men. Roger Dodger is another example where women are wearing suits and ties and artificial insemination means men are not. If the movies of Do We Need Men followed tragedies in our nation and economies, then we would have disaster capitalism. Disaster capitalism is an economic system that creates disasters in order to exploit what happened for their own gain. We see an example of tragedy being used with George W. Bush and Dick Cheney after 9/11. They ended up scaring people back into the conventional gender binarism that no longer works or corresponds to our economic climate. It was a fight between the end of men and the norms, but America thought it needed to toughen up, so it was declared the end of feminism. The traditional family is changing. Wealthy families are paying for artificial insemination, while poorer families are struggling to support the families they have. Religious right blames gays and lesbians and unchecked reproduction among lesser-off people for the decline of marriage and family. Meanwhile, Hannah Rosen writes that the decline in marriages is the disappointment women have in men after setting their standards too high. There is much talk about women being on top of the new gender order. With that, though, comes the fact that women dominate the more they behave like the dominant sex, therefore taking after what we might have thought men would act like. However, whoever is in charge are just as equally bad as the others. Just remember that the categories of masculinity and femininity have changed much over time, just as the structure of gender and stereotypes have. Although the end of men is mentioned much, it should be thought of more as, are fathers necessary? There are a multitude of single-parent households with the mothers in charge, and much has changed with sperm donors and men's contributions to their families. With the end of men, it is referring mostly to white men because to refer to the end of black men would sound sinister after the past of people literally trying to get the end of black men to occur.
When searching for narratives in media to help explain how the reorganization of family can impact their lives, Americans most often view media that indeed displays the old family under the guise of the new narrative. A good example of this comes from the 2006 HBO series titled Big Love, a fictional show which follows the lives of a polygamous Mormon family. While the show pushes audience to come to terms with the non-normative family structure and alternative lifestyle displayed within the show, the family in focus is deeply patriarchal, and in fact hardly strays from the values, traditions, or common associations held with the heteronormative family. Another recent piece of media that supports the old family structure is the 2010 film The Kids Are Alright, a film that follows the lives of a lesbian couple and their teenage kids during a point in their lives when the donor who provided the sperm for their children makes an appearance in their lives. While the film tries to sell the well-used message that love conquers all, and that family trumps adversity, it inadvertently instead offers a heavy critique towards gay marriage that seems to support the concept of the nuclear family, much to the misfortune of the film. Another recent piece, gender roles need to be broken, whether in the form of parenting or even just relationships in general. Women need more recognition for the roles they fill in homes, especially in an age when women do a majority of the household labor. The music video for Lady Gaga's song Telephone, while seemingly unrelated to all of this at first glance, delves into this line of thought somewhat, pushing the message that men are unnecessary when confronted with the strength and independence of women, and that roles and recognition need to be changed in society to truly give equality among all.